There are many stitches you can use for applique, but the stitches that people look for most are probably the blanket stitches. And on this machine, we have a variety of different choices. And of course, we could use any of these stitches to kind of go around a raw edge, but let's stick to the traditional ones. Number 9 is a regular, what I would call a single stitch, so it goes down and back, in and back. And this one would be more of a heavier stitch, so it's going to be a lot thicker stitch. And did you notice that it actually moved off to the side? So it's actually in the far right needle position. And this one is going to have more stitches in between each of the little bites. So depending on the look that you're after, try out all the stitches and see which one you like the best. This one is a great one. And if I am going to make it a little wider, I usually make it a little longer, keeping these numbers the same, and that way you get that perfect box. You almost get the same width that is the length, and that creates an equal amount. If you go longer, of course, you get more spread out, or if you go narrower or bigger, you can see the change that you're making. It just depends on what you're going around. So like right now, I'm going to go around this kind of small little star. I might actually leave it on the 2.5, the default setting. Foot number 1A is on. I have the dual feet, and I also have some stabilizer underneath my fabric. And there is a line on the foot to kind of get you a place to start. And as you start, the key is really just first getting used to the way the stitch forms, because at any given time, you're probably going to need to stop with the needle down and turn a corner. Oh, and I don't have it set to the needle stopping down feature, so we'll turn that back on. There we go. And then I can use the pivoting feature to kind of go around the star. Now it's always a little tricky when coming up to an actual real live close corner and how to actually get around there so it doesn't look so you know, where it doesn't look like you've kind of overstepped your boundary here. But that just takes a little bit of practice. I do have some variegated thread on here, so that always is kind of fun to do. But you just have to kind of get the rhythm of your stitch as you're going around. All right, this will give you an idea of what type of stitch we're talking about. I love the look of a blanket stitch. We were also doing the satin stitch on this star as well, keeping in mind that even though we're going around a fused item, that raw edge can work its way a little loose if that was going to be on an item that was going to be washed. Now a satin stitch would have covered up that raw edge completely, making it so it stayed perfect for ever. But the blanket stitch is a little faster. A lot of people like that. And look, you can have some fun with variegated thread as you stitch. So once again, the proportion is probably the one thing to kind of keep in mind. This being a little bit smaller, the smaller stitch is the right size. I could go in and maybe make it 2 millimeters wide and 2 millimeters long, make it a little easier to get around those points. But remember, just because you want to do some applique doesn't mean you have to use a blanket stitch. I am a big fan of using lots of your stitches that you have built into this machine and going around a raw edge with those. So try those out and don't get stuck in the blanket stitch rut, as I always tell my students.